They laughed at us. Every species in that glowing galactic council hall had some version of laughter, and they all used it when Earth's fleet docked. Our ships looked like relics from a scrapyard, battered steel, mismatched armor plates, and engines that coughed smoke instead of humming clean plasma. Compared to the galaxy's sleek crafts, we looked like primitives who'd brought slingshots to a plasma cannon fight, which was exactly what we wanted them to think. Commander Darius Holt stood on the cracked metal floor of the Havoc Warden, Earth's flagship. He was a tall, broad-shouldered brute with a cybernetic jaw from a close call during the Titan collapse, and eyes like weathered steel, unreadable but always watching. His voice came over the comms with the calm of a man who had nothing left to lose. All ships maintain junkyard visuals. No comm chatter unless it's smoke and mirrors. We don't want them scared yet. His crew was a patchwork gang of survivors, former street racers from the Martian wastes, ex-Special Forces operatives who went rogue when Earth fell out of favor, and young hotshots trained in zero-gravity dogfighting simulations banned by the Council for being too dangerous. Every one of them had bled for the cause. Every one of them had a reason to burn the galaxy's arrogance to ash. Out in the void floated the Council's fleet, shiny, symmetrical, perfect. Varnak cruisers gleamed like jewels. Drevi scout ships flitted like ghosts. The Zale mothership was a leviathan, more a floating palace than a ship, bloated with weaponry and luxury. The alien fleets lined up with surgical precision. Meanwhile, Earth's ships jittered in odd patterns, leaving engine trails and sputtering magnetic fields. To the aliens, we looked like a bad joke. Good. A voice oozing superiority cracked across the comms. Commander Holt, do you intend to proceed with these antiques? It was Council General Schur, a translucent blob in a gold-framed exosuit, known across the stars for his polite contempt of everything human. Holt responded without emotion. They'll do. A tiny probe launched from the Council vessel, trailing a bright data beacon. It was the flag, the object of the training exercise. Capture it, secure it, and return to base. It was a game, meant to show cooperation, skill, and mutual respect. But humans weren't here to play games. Not anymore. Holt activated a switch on his console. Phase 1, he growled. Shake them off their thrones. One by one, Earth's ships disengaged their stabilizers. Instead of flying with clean, elegant lines, they spiraled, dipped, and snapped into erratic thrust patterns. These weren't breakdowns. They were human pilots pushing ships beyond Council limitations. Each movement looked like a system failure. The aliens dismissed it as a predictable malfunction. And that was their first mistake. Our chaos is a weapon, Holt murmured. Let them watch us fall apart, right before we break them. A Drevi commander barked across open comms. Earth vessels are unstable. This is dangerous. No reply. The Rogue Angel, a beat-up recon vessel that looked one ion storm away from exploding, blasted forward like a drunken missile and snatched the flag probe mid-spin. It was supposed to be impossible. Council A. I scrambled to recalibrate. Alien ships twitched, waiting for new instructions. But the Rogue Angel had already pulled a hard roll, dipping behind the shield grid of the Varnak line. Then, it did something worse. It broadcast live footage to every screen in orbit. Holt stood, arms crossed, watching the feed. Council members in secret meetings, files exposing their plot to bleed Earth dry after integration. He let the silence stretch before cutting in. You wanted proof of our capability? His voice dropped into a deadly calm. Here's your first taste. The Council scrambled. Ships began to lock weapons. Protocols shattered. But Earth wasn't finished. Holt leaned over his console, cracked his knuckles, and said, Phase 2. Full engagement. Chaos bloomed across the stars. The moment Darius Holt uttered full engagement, Earth's so-called outdated fleet erupted into motion with terrifying precision. The illusion of disarray shattered like a cracked visor. The ships that had once sputtered and staggered suddenly moved like sharpened blades, slicing through formation lines and exploiting every crack in the Council's rigid strategy. "Switch to kill protocols," Holt ordered. "Target propulsion, not hulls. Cripple them. Let them feel what it's like to lose control." Dozens of Earth ships responded instantly, their systems kicking into full combat mode. From the outside, the transformation looked impossible. Engines that had appeared on the brink of failure surged with raw energy. Hulls unfolded, revealing hidden weapon bays and plasma turrets cobbled together in Earth's underground arsenals. The ships didn't rely on AI to fly. They relied on instinct, guts, the kind of instincts you sharpen in real war, not simulations. The Havoc Warden surged forward, leading the charge. Alien chatter flooded the comms. "They're attacking! This wasn't authorized! The humans are breaking treaty!" Holt ignored them. The Council fleets were already buckling. Their combat formations, precise to the millimeter, couldn't adapt fast enough. They'd trained in sterile environments where everything went according to plan. But Earth didn't believe in plans. Earth believed in surviving. On the starboard side, a cluster of Zale interceptors tried to encircle the rogue Angel, their sleek silver hulls gleaming. Holt watched as the Angel cut its thrusters mid-turn and let inertia whip the ship in a reverse spin, firing in all directions. It shredded the interceptors like paper. One exploded into a fiery bloom, fragments crashing into a Varnak cruiser, which started spinning out of control. "Reaper 9, loop under their engines," Holt instructed. "Blind them with flare bursts. Hit their sensors." A voice came back, young and fierce. "Roger that, Commander. Let's dance." The Reaper squadron, 6 rust bucket fighters barely held together by magnetic sealant, dove underneath the massive motherships. The aliens had dismissed them as broken-down scouts. What they didn't know was that Reaper pilots had practiced maneuvers banned by every galactic military code. Suicide spins, collision dips, fake-outs so aggressive they overloaded enemy tracking systems. They didn't fly like soldiers. They flew like lunatics. And it worked. The Varnak Dreadnought tried to launch its defensive drones. A second too late. The Reapers released kinetic EMP bursts, non-lethal, but designed to scramble anything digital. Holt smiled as the alien Dreadnought stuttered in space like a drunk beast, sparks trailing from its hull. Aboard the Havoc Warden, Commander Holt paced calmly, despite the chaos unfolding around him. His hands moved over the manual interface, a rarity in this galaxy where most ships ran on automated guidance. But humans had learned not to trust computers. Oh, I couldn't feel fear. Oh, I couldn't hate, and right now, hate was a weapon. "They called us outdated," Holt muttered to himself, "but we remember what it means to fight for survival, not conquest, not politics, just survival." "Commander," came a voice from his tactical officer, a tall woman named Sergeant Vega. "Council reinforcements inbound, a 3rd wave. They're bringing in battlecruisers." "Good," Holt said. "Let them." On the display, the 3rd wave warped into view. Dozens of fresh ships with polished hulls and neatly aligned weaponry. Their formation was flawless. Holt didn't even flinch. "Activate fleet dust protocol." Vega raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "That's all in. We've already jumped off the cliff. May as well fly." Fleet dust protocol was something only Earth could pull off, and only because no other civilization would dare try it. Every human ship began releasing fine clouds of reflective chaff particles, thousands of them, each the size of a grain of sand, but capable of mimicking heat signatures and scrambling targeting sensors. Within seconds, the battlefield became a storm of confusion. Council targeting A. I pinged thousands of false positives. Ships fired blindly, often at their own allies. A Drevi corvette shot down one of its own scouts. A Zal ship accidentally launched missiles into its own mothership's flank. The battlefield was now a maelstrom of panic and misfire. From his command seat, Holt gripped the edge and leaned forward. Initiate signal burn. Vega blinked. Commander, if we burn the signals now, we'll lose any chance of negotiations. There's no negotiation after this, just history. With a single code input, every human ship overloaded its communications beacons with raw white noise, blinding the Council fleets to each other's positions, making it seem as though Earth's fleet was everywhere at once. From the outside, it looked like madness, but it was controlled chaos, Earth's greatest advantage. Darius had spent years studying the Council's weakness. Their ships were perfect, too perfect. They required stable conditions to function at peak efficiency. They'd never fought in uncertainty, never been cornered, never been desperate. But humans? We were born in desperation, raised on it. We excelled in it. Suddenly, an alert flashed across Holt's display. One of the Council's backup warships was heading straight toward the Havoc Warden. Fast, too fast. Sir, incoming. They've locked onto us. Hold formation, Holt barked. His officers hesitated. The alien ship was a juggernaut. Twice the size, twice the firepower. But Holt didn't budge. Let them come, he said. The alien ship drew closer, charging weapons. Holt waited, and waited. Then said, Fire coil lancers. Aim for starboard stabilizers. Twin bursts of purple energy exploded from the Havoc Warden, striking the approaching Council vessel right as it crossed a small debris cloud. Human-made wreckage from a destroyed cargo freighter. Except it wasn't destroyed. It had been loaded with magnetic mines disguised as junk. The mines detonated with surgical timing. The alien vessel twisted mid-air, its left engine flaring out, spiraling into a field of Earth's ships waiting like wolves in the dark. The humans pounced. You see that? Holt said, half to himself. That's the price of thinking we're nothing. And then his comm officer turned, pale. Commander, we've got a transmission from the Council's emergency line. It's sure. Holt's smile faded. Put him on. The screen crackled and flared. Council General Schur's bulbous form appeared, this time stripped of his smugness. His voice had a tremble now. Holt, this isn't sanctioned war. This is rebellion. Treason. Wrong, Holt said, eyes burning. This is justice. You'll be exiled. Earth will be erased. We were already exiled, Holt interrupted. You just didn't use the word. You fed us lies, promised unity, then planned to gut our planet and enslave our people in the name of peace. Schur's voice was ice. You think this ends with your little victory today? Holt leaned forward until his face filled the screen. This isn't the end, he said. This is the beginning. Earth is done begging for a seat at your table. From now on, we build our own. And then he cut the transmission. A silence fell over the bridge. Outside, the Council fleets were scattering. Ships either fled or limped through emergency warp gates. They didn't expect to lose. They weren't used to pain, but humans had reminded them. The Havoc Warden floated through the wreckage of alien arrogance. Status? Holt asked. Reapers report 80% success. Rogue Angel is intact. Minimal casualties. Holt exhaled slowly. Then we hold the field. They didn't cheer. They didn't celebrate. They knew this was just round one. But for the first time in galactic history, Earth had spoken loud enough to be heard. And no one would forget it. The aftermath hung in the void like smoke over a battlefield. Wreckage drifted silently, burned out Drevi fighters, Varnak dreadnought fragments, and thousands of broken shards from the Council's pride. Against this floating graveyard stood Earth's ragtag fleet, scarred but breathing. They had held their line. They had done the impossible. But Commander Darius Holt wasn't celebrating. Not yet. "Status report," he said, his voice gravel and steel. His comms officer, Lieutenant Ricks, wiped blood from a cut on his temple and responded, "We've got 13 ships down. 17 damaged beyond field repair. 5 are running hot with reactor leaks. Rogue Angel took a glancing hit but managed to stabilize. Casualty count at 47 confirmed." Holt clenched his jaw. "Make it 37. "Sir." He turned toward Ricks. 10 of those bastards faked their deaths in the sim-lag fields. I'd bet my last breath they're still kicking." Ricks gave a faint smile. "Understood." Across the command deck of the Havoc Warden, the tension had shifted. The adrenaline of battle was bleeding off, and in its place came the quiet understanding that they'd lit a fire the galaxy couldn't ignore. Earth had been a joke an hour ago. Now it was a problem, and problems get erased. "Commander," said Sergeant Vega, walking up with a tablet in hand. "We intercepted a high-frequency pulse from one of the Council's retreating ships. They sent out a silent distress call. Long range." Holt took the tablet and read the signal data. "Coordinates match Sigma Protocol," Vega added. Holt's eyes darkened. "They're calling the Arbiters." The room went dead silent. Arbiters weren't soldiers. They were executioners. Enforcers sent by the Council when diplomacy failed and annihilation was preferred over conversation. Each one piloted a vessel the size of a small moon. A single Arbiter ship could flatten continents. Their entire purpose was to ensure no race, no system, defied the balance of power the Council held sacred. And Earth had just shattered that balance. "They'll be here in hours," Vega said. "Maybe less." Holt nodded slowly. "Then we don't run." "Sir?" "We send a message." He turned to the communications console and leaned in close to the mic. His voice was cold, clear, and deliberate. "This is Commander Darius Holt of the Terran Free Fleet. As of now, Earth recognizes no galactic authority that feeds on lies and calls it law. You came to our system expecting surrender. You found a people who've been betrayed, starved, and forgotten. And still, we stand." He paused, letting that sink in before continuing. "If you send Arbiters, know this. They won't find a fight. They'll find a war." Then he cut the line and sat back. He didn't care who heard. The message wasn't for the Council. It was for every other backwater species crushed under their rule, every world told to kneel or vanish. Behind him, the navigation officer looked uneasy. "Sir, what if they do come? What if it's not just one Arbiter ship?" Holt looked out the viewing screen at the blackness of space. "Then we show them Earth was just the first to say no." 12 hours later, the signal hit. An energy ripple swept through the far edge of the system, distorting gravity and pulling wreckage into spirals. Stars flickered. Warning klaxons lit up across every Earth ship. The Arbiter had arrived. It didn't jump in with a flash of light. It bent its way into space like a knife through skin, forming from nothing. A jagged vessel of obsidian metal, shaped like a warped blade, 4 kilometers long and glowing at the seams with red, liquid plasma. The Havoc Warden's scanners screamed as the reading climbed off the scale. "Confirmed Arbiter signature," Ricks whispered. "Designation, Omega Black. Commanded by entity code ZAL-9. Holt stood slowly, his fingers tightening around the edge of the console. "Bring all ships to formation Delta 3. I want every last working gun aimed at that thing." The fleet shuffled into a tight defense grid, Earth's version of a last stand. There was no trickery now, no surprises, no clever distractions, Just a wall of broken steel and desperate pilots willing to die before they bowed. A voice came through the comms. It wasn't sound. It was a presence, injected straight into their minds. You have defied council law. Your actions warrant extermination. Holt responded, not with defiance, but something worse. Calm. I'm not here to make excuses. I'm here to tell you if you fire that thing, your name will become legend for being the first Arbiter to fail. Silence. Then the Arbiter opened its side hangars. A wave of light shimmered. It was preparing to fire. But Holt had been ready. Reapers, initiate Project Blindside. From the underbellies of Earth's smallest fighters, a payload of condensed electromagnetic mines launched. These weren't meant to destroy. They were meant to infect. The moment they latched onto the Arbiter's outer hull, they detonated in microbursts. Thousands of small viral fragments spread into the ship's systems, Earth's most dangerous gift, organic code. It was human-made malware written with instinct and rage, designed to hunt down and rewrite alien programming. The Arbiter stuttered. Systems blinked. For the first time in recorded history, an Arbiter hesitated. And Holt moved. All ships, fire! The void lit up like a sun was being born. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, and concentrated railgun bursts smashed into the Arbiter's underbelly. The Arbiter retaliated, swiping with a beam that incinerated 2 Earth vessels in an instant. But Earth didn't retreat. Keep pushing, Holt roared. Every second we hold is a message they can't delete. The Havoc Warden was hit, twice. Alarms screamed, and the lights dimmed. Sparks flew across the command deck. Vega shouted, "Shields are down! Hull breach in Sector 5! Holt slammed a fist into the panel. "Seal off Sector 5. Redirect power from life support if you have to. We end this here." Outside, something began to change. The viral code Earth had injected was spreading faster than expected. The Arbiter's weapon system started malfunctioning. One cannon backfired. Another overloaded and exploded in a chain reaction across its right flank. A moment of weakness. "Now," Holt barked. "Fire the Thanatos cannon." The weapon had been Earth's last-ditch experiment, a magnetic rail spear made from neutron star fragments. One shot only, unstable, possibly suicidal. But it worked. The cannon charged, glowing white-hot. Then it launched, a single spear of death that tore through space and impaled the Arbiter mid-hull. A ripple of energy burst out like a shockwave. Alien alloys cracked. Systems buckled. The Arbiter reeled. And then, impossibly, it turned and retreated. The creature inside, Zal 9, realized what the Council hadn't. Earth was no longer prey. It was proof. Proof that a planet with no resources, no allies, and outdated ships could still bring down a god. When the Arbiter disappeared into the folds of space, the silence it left behind was deafening. On the bridge of the Havoc Warden, nobody moved. They just stared at the spot where death had been, and where Earth had survived. Rick sat down slowly, exhaling like a man who'd been holding his breath for a week. We beat it." Vega shook her head in disbelief. "We survived an Arbiter." But Holt didn't look relieved. He looked tired, because he knew survival came at a price. "Get a message out," he said quietly. "To every colony, every fringe planet, anyone who's ever been stepped on by the Council. Tell them what we did here." He looked out the viewport, voice lowering to a whisper. "Tell them Earth stood up and didn't fall." 3 days had passed since the Arbiter fled. The Havoc Warden floated quietly above the scorched rings of the Tau Sigma sector. The wreckage from the battle still drifted like a graveyard of forgotten glory. Human engineers moved across the hulls in exosuits, patching wounds and scavenging parts from destroyed Council crafts. There were no cheers, No parades, only silence, sweat, and a growing sense of something heavy rising in the galaxy's throat. Because humanity had done what no one thought possible. They didn't just fight the Council, they survived. Commander Darius Holt stood in the war room with a datapad in hand, reading the third wave of encrypted responses they'd received from fringe worlds. Dozens of them, some barely clinging to civilization, had heard the broadcast Earth sent after the battle. The message was short but potent. "We bled for this sky. You don't have to kneel anymore." The responses ranged from stunned silence to shaky pledges of support. A colony on Virex 5 dismantled their Council observation outpost and raised Earth's flag, nothing more than black cloth marked with a white star. A mining world in the Riken Drift declared its independence. Ships bearing unknown call signs had begun slipping through human-patrolled space, offering aid, trade, or just a nod of silent respect. Still, not everyone was celebrating. Not yet. "Sir," Sergeant Vega said as she entered the room, visor in hand. "We just intercepted a transmission. It's not from the Council." Holt looked up. "Then from who?" She tossed a holodisk onto the console. A hologram flared to life. A dark figure in a long cloak, face obscured but the voice unmistakable. Low, calm, terrifying. "Commander Holt, we are the Sovereign Chain. You don't know us, but we know you, and we watched what you did to the Arbiter." Holt narrowed his eyes. He'd heard the name whispered in prison camps, in smuggler dives, ghost stories of a rogue alliance made up of exiled races, black market warlords, and soldiers the Council couldn't control. The Sovereign Chain wasn't a faction. It was a rumor with teeth. "We're not here to threaten you," the voice continued. "We're here to meet, 1 week. Outpost Nadir. Bring your strongest ship, or don't bother showing up at all." The message ended. Rix, who had been quietly listening in the corner, muttered, "Outpost Nadir? That's in the dark spiral. No trade, no comms. Place is practically cursed." "Which makes it the perfect place for a revolution to be born," Holt replied. He stood straight, running a hand across his jaw. The metal jaw clicked softly as he thought. "Prep the warden. We're going." The journey to Outpost Nadir wasn't smooth. The dark spiral lived up to its name, asteroid fields thick enough to crush unwelcome guests, gravity wells that bent light the wrong way, and black market pirates who only backed off when they saw the battle scars along the Havoc Warden's hull. When they finally reached Nadir, it wasn't what Holt expected. The station was ancient. Built by a race long extinct, it was all curved metal and flickering blue lights. Massive statues floated outside it. Serpentine figures with too many arms, too many eyes. Silent watchers from a forgotten age. "Creepy," Rick said, tapping the viewing screen. "Looks like a tomb." "Maybe it is," Vega muttered. "A tomb for old empires, or maybe a birthplace for a new one." They docked without resistance. Inside, the air was stale but breathable. Figures in mismatched armor lined the corridors. Some humanoid, others insectoid, reptilian, even spectral. No one spoke. They only stared. Finally, they were led into a vast chamber lit by a pulsating red orb overhead. It wasn't artificial. It pulsed like a beating heart. At the center stood a man, if he could still be called that. Tall, bald, his face a roadmap of scars and old cybernetic grafts, with one eye replaced by a black lens that rotated independently. He wore no insignia. Just a cloak made from stitched-together flags, every one a symbol of a world the Council had crushed. "Commander Darius Holt," the man said, his voice a low thunder. "I'm Kale, former general of the Varkon Uprising, leader of the Sovereign Chain." Holt didn't blink. "I heard the Varkon Uprising was wiped out." Kale smiled faintly. That's what the Council tells people they fear. Wipe the truth with a lie. It's easier than explaining how we survived. He stepped forward. We've been watching you. You didn't just beat the Arbiter. You exposed the myth. You proved the Council can bleed. What do you want from us? Holt asked. Kyle's smile vanished. Not what we want, what you are. You've become the spark. Whether you like it or not, you're a symbol now, and symbols can't sit still. They either rise or die. He extended a data crystal. This contains intel, Council weapon stockpiles, secret projects, even locations of slave colonies still operating under the radar. We've collected it for years, waiting for someone like you. Holt took the crystal, his fingers brushing the cold surface. It was heavy, not in weight, but in consequence. You want me to lead your rebellion? He asked, voice flat. Kyle shook his head. Number, I want you to ignite it. Silence hung for a long moment. Finally, Holt said, I'll do it. But not for your cause, not for glory. I'll do it because I've buried too many friends under stars that didn't remember their names. And I'll make damn sure no more graves are dug for silence. Kyle nodded once. Then welcome to the war behind the war. Back aboard the Havoc Warden, as they left Outpost Nadir behind, the crew felt the shift in gravity. Not from the ship, but from the moment. Something had changed. Rix leaned over Holt's shoulder as he reviewed the data crystal. Sir, this stuff, it's ugly. Secret bioweapons, test colonies, council prisons we didn't even know existed. If this leaks, the galaxy could explode. That's the point, Holt said. Vega looked up from her station. We just survived the council. Now we're going to start a war with them? Holt stared at the stars through the viewport, voice steady as ever. We already did. The war didn't start with a battle. It started with a leak. 3 days after leaving Outpost Nadir, Commander Darius Holt made the call that would light a fire across half the galaxy. He transmitted the data crystal, Kyle's damning cache of secrets, into the Council's secure frequency bands. Not encrypted, not hidden, broadcasted. Every planetary newsfeed, every trader ship, every fringe world still clinging to hope. They all received it. Raw footage of Council experiments on hybrid species, recordings of slave labor camps on moons they'd declared uninhabitable, audio of Council generals discussing the calculated extermination of non-cooperative colonies, and the image that stuck with everyone, a child. Thin, shivering, chained in a metal pen. Her eyes were the same pale blue as the Council's official crest. Holt let it all loose. He didn't care about politics anymore. He cared about the truth, and making the ones who buried it bleed. Back on the Havoc Warden, the bridge was dead silent as the final broadcast played out on the main screen. Holt stood, hands clasped behind his back, jaw clenched. Rix broke the silence. We just took a match to a powder keg. No, Holt said, eyes locked on the screen. We lit a torch. The response was immediate. The Varnak Consortium declared martial law across 6 sectors. The Dravi High Command issued denials and deployed suppression fleets. The Zal Syndicate blacklisted all Earth ships, calling them galactic terrorists. And yet, on the ground, across colony worlds and deep space mining rings, something new stirred. Mutinies. Not massive. Not yet. But enough. A Drevi comms technician jammed her commanding officer's signal and opened a channel to Earth. A Zale cargo fleet refused to dock at Council-run spaceports and instead rerouted supplies to a rebel-controlled outpost. Even a Varnak war cruiser, silent for decades, sent one message to Earth's fleet. We were waiting. Holt wasn't surprised. The Council thought strength was about fleets and firepower, but Earth understood better. Strength was suffering. Strength was surviving with nothing and still standing up. and now the rest of the galaxy was learning it too. They met in a hollowed-out asteroid in neutral space, representatives from 16 species, outlaws, exiles, forgotten resistance leaders. They called it the Ash Summit. No rules, no formalities, just smoke, scars, and anger. Holt sat at the center, flanked by Sergeant Vega and Rix. Across from him, Kale nodded once. The Varkon warlord now wore no armor, just scars and a patch over one eye that leaked red fluid from a shattered implant. "We've got fire," Kyle said, "but fire without aim burns itself out. You showed us what Earth could do. Now we need to know what you're willing to lead." Holt didn't answer right away. He looked around the room, at the Dravi insurgent with twitching fingers, the scarred Varnak elder whispering in ancient tongue, the insectoid twins from Selith space, bonded by a common vendetta. And he realized this wasn't a meeting. It was a funeral for the old order. "I'm not interested in building an empire," Holt finally said. "Earth didn't claw its way here to become the new boot on someone's neck, but I'll tell you what I am willing to do." The room waited. "I'm willing to teach the Council what fear feels like." Silence. Then Coyle grinned. That's all we needed to hear. Earth's next strike came not with guns, but with a whisper. The Sovereign Chain coordinated with Holt to infiltrate a forgotten moon on the edge of Sector 19. The Council called it Facility Vorta. To the galaxy, it was a dead rock. But beneath its surface, it housed one of the Council's darkest projects. Project Yoke. Biological mind control. Neural dampeners. Brainstem parasites harvested from extinct species, repurposed to subdue rebellious populations without leaving a single scar. Holt took it personally. They hit the base with 3 ships, no more. The Havoc Warden, the Rogue Angel, and a stealth corvette codenamed Ghostwind, piloted by a Dravi defector named Saren, who'd once tried to bomb Earth. Funny how war made allies out of enemies. They dropped under radar and landed in silence. Inside, Facility Vorta was cold steel and darker shadows. Hundreds of holding tanks, filled with liquid and twitching bodies. The victims weren't dead, but they weren't alive either. "They've been erased," Vega said, voice low, staring at one human boy floating in the gel, eyes open but blank. "Like their minds were uninstalled." "Like machines," Holt said. "No emotion, just steel." He turned to the crew. "No survivors on their side? Wipe it clean." What followed was precise, surgical, brutal. Rix hacked the internal systems and dumped every lab record into Earth's databanks. Vega led the demolition team. Holt himself pulled the first trigger. When they left, Facility Vorta didn't just explode. It folded in on itself, thanks to a payload made from Council tech they'd stolen months earlier. A poetic end, Holt thought. By the time the Council responded, they arrived to ash and silence. And once again, a message. Scrawled into the hull of the landing dock, scorched into the metal by heat laser. "We are not your cattle." The galaxy shifted again. Worlds that had stood neutral now began to murmur. A mining clan in the Yarn Belt overthrew their corporate governor and joined the rebellion. 3 low-tier council senators resigned and fled into deep space, sending encrypted notes of support to Holt's fleet. And somewhere deep in Zal territory, a council destroyer disappeared, only to return days later under a different flag, Earth's flag, the flag of the broken, the scarred, the enraged. But the Council was not idle. They weren't going to lose their grip without clawing back. And this time they didn't send an arbiter. They sent a hunter. Worse. Hunters were created for one reason, to eliminate threats before they become revolutions. Not ships, not officers, assassins. And this one, the galaxy whispered, wasn't entirely alive. Codenamed Null Directive, the hunter had once been human. Now it was something else. Holt learned about it the hard way. 3 days after the facility Vorta strike, the ghost wind exploded mid-transmission. No warning. No survivors. Saren's last message. He's here. Holt tightened security around the Havoc Warden, but he knew the truth. You didn't run from a hunter. You fought, or you died. And Darius Holt had no intention of dying quietly. That night, as he stood alone in his quarters, staring out at the cold, black sea of stars, the weight of it all finally caught up. The dead faces, the near-suicidal odds, the pressure of being a symbol for people he'd never met. He whispered to the dark, "I didn't ask for any of this." But somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the exhaustion and the guilt, a fire still burned. Because despite everything, the scars, the pain, the past, Earth had won. And that meant the galaxy could too, but not unless they fought harder. So Holt turned, keyed into the main comms, and broadcast one simple message to the entire Rebel fleet. Prepare for retaliation. The Council just declared total war. The hunter struck at midnight. No alarms, no ships warping in, just silence, until the Havoc Warden's main reactor dropped into emergency power without a single error code. A chill ran through the decks. It wasn't just mechanical, it was presence. Like something ancient and wrong had stepped into the ship's lungs and started breathing. Commander Darius Holt was in the war room when the lights flickered. He didn't move at first. He just watched the shadows lengthen across the metal walls and listened to the silence that had replaced the hum of the engines. Then Sergeant Vega's voice crackled through the comms, tight and urgent. "Commander, we've lost gravity on Deck 7 and 8. Comms went dead in engineering. And I think someone's walking the bridge corridors." "Seal all bulkheads," Holt replied. "Red protocol." The command sent the ship into full lockdown. Blast doors slammed shut. Defense turrets activated. Crew weapons powered up. But Holt knew it wouldn't be enough. This wasn't a boarding party. It was him. Null Directive, the Council's ghost assassin. Once human. Rewritten. Reprogrammed. And now, unleashed. He was legend to the rest of the galaxy, spoken of in whispers and warnings. But to Holt, he was personal. Years ago, before the stars knew Holt's name, before Rebellion, there'd been another commander, another war, and another man, Elias Rhine, Holt's best friend, closer than a brother, killed in a botched Council operation on Valeris Prime. At least that's what they'd told him. But now he knew the truth. Elias hadn't died. The Council had taken him, turned his body into a weapon, stripped his soul, stitched him with biotech and silence. Null Directive wasn't just a monster, he was a message. We own even your memories. Deck 6 went dark. Then Deck 5. Internal security cameras cut out one by one, replaced with static or distorted footage. Shadows moving like smoke, lights flaring and vanishing, crew screaming, then silenced mid-word. Rix shouted over the internal channel. "We can't trace him, Commander! He's jamming everything! Even the biomonitors are— Wait!" Static. Gone. Holt slammed a fist into the console and turned to Vega. "Get your best men. We're going hunting." They moved in silence, weapons hot, through corridors that now felt like tombs. Holt walked point, pulse rifle braced to his shoulder, scanning every flicker of movement. Vega flanked him, jaw clenched, her HUD blinking warnings across her visor. The ship was too quiet, too still, like a predator was watching from just behind the walls. And then came the first body. Private Enzo. Neck snapped. No struggle, no wound, just crumpled against the wall like a toy left behind. Another turn, another corpse. 2, then 4, all of them dead with the same surgical precision. No alarms, no blood, just absence. "He's not killing to fight," Vega muttered. "He's killing to send a message." "He always did love theatrics," Holt replied. They turned the corner and entered the main fusion relay chamber. That's when they saw him. Standing alone. Not armored, not bulky, just still. A man-shaped figure in matte black body mesh, his face covered by a mask with no features, only a faint red line where the eyes should be. Null directive. Holt froze. Because behind the mask, he recognized the posture. The way the left hand twitched like it once held a lighter. The slight tilt of the head. "Elias." "Don't," Vega whispered, raising her rifle. "I have to," Holt muttered. He stepped forward. The assassin didn't move. "You remember me?" Holt asked. "Because I remember you." "Nothing." Holt took another step. "You used to laugh like a bastard. You drank too much, smoked in the engine room, and you saved my life more times than I deserved." The assassin's head turned slightly. "You're not a machine," Holt continued. "You're what they made when they couldn't kill your loyalty. So they carved it out, and now you're empty." A flicker. A tiny pulse in the red slit across the mask. Recognition? Glitch? Holt couldn't tell. "Elias, come back." The assassin lifted a hand, not to strike, but to slowly remove the mask. It hissed as it disconnected. Underneath was a face Holt barely recognized, scarred, pale, with steel wires lacing his jaw and temples. The eyes were dim. One cybernetic. One human. But the human eye, it twitched. "Dasarius," the voice came out, broken and metallic. Vega took a sharp breath. Holt didn't move. He was locked in place. "Yeah," he whispered. "I'm here." Then Elias's body spasmed, and he screamed, not with pain, not with rage, but with conflict. His body twitched, joints locking, lights flashing across his implants. "They're inside me," he gasped. "No choice." "You have a choice now," Holt said, stepping closer, ignoring Vega's silent protests. "They said, if I hesitated, everyone would die." Holt nodded. "Then don't hesitate." The lights in the chamber flared, and Elias lifted his arm. A weapon slid from his wrist, pointed at Holt's heart. Vega shouted, "Move!" But Holt stood still. "I'm not going to fight you," he said softly, "because you're already fighting yourself." Elias's arm shook. Then he turned it and fired into the wall. The explosion sent debris across the room. Sparks. Fire. But Holt and Vega were untouched. The assassin fell to one knee, clutching his head. I broke the lock," he whispered. "But they're coming. They sent another." "Another what?" Vega asked, but Holt already knew. "They never send one hunter. They always send a backup." Elias, no longer just null directive, stood slowly. His body still trembled. His voice was shredded. "I can't undo what I did." "You don't have to," Holt replied. "Just help me stop what's next." Elias nodded slowly. Then his face hardened. "There's a new project. Something worse than Arbiters. Worse than me." Holt's blood ran cold. "What is it?" "They call it the Echo Fleet." Back on the bridge, the lights flickered back on. The crew slowly came out of hiding. Rix returned with burns along one arm, but alive. Half the comms were still jammed, but life support had stabilized. And Holt walked onto the deck with a new passenger behind him, a man once dead, now reborn. Elias Rhine. There were no cheers, just stunned silence. Vega turned to Holt. "You sure this is a good idea?" "No," Holt replied, "but we're out of good ideas." He turned to Elias. "You said Echo Fleet. What is it?" Elias took a breath. The kind of breath you take before speaking a name no one wants to hear. "They're building perfect copies, not ships, people, soldiers, leaders, from every rebellion they've crushed. They're taking the best of every enemy and making them loyal. He looked at Holt. They made a version of you. Holt didn't flinch. Then I guess I'll have to kill myself. Rix groaned in the corner. That's the most Holt thing I've ever heard. Elias looked back at the stars. They're launching the first wave in 7 days. From a facility hidden beneath the Black Echo Nebula. You'll never get near it. Holt leaned forward, fire in his eyes. Wrong. He cracked his knuckles. They've never had to fight a dead man, a ghost, and a ship full of lunatics who know how to turn rust into rockets. He turned to Vega and Rix. Prep the fleet. Then he looked at Elias. And find me something to kill my copy with. The Black Echo Nebula didn't appear on any civilian star charts. Officially, it didn't exist. Unmarked, unscanned, and unacknowledged, it floated beyond Sector 46 like a stain in space. Where other nebulas shimmered with color, the Black Echo was a void, a churning mass of anti-light, dense gravitational bends, and silent pulses that made sensors bleed static. Only the Council could hide a facility in a place like that. Only Earth would be stupid enough to fly into it. Commander Darius Holt stood in front of the tactical display aboard the Havoc Warden, now rearmed and reinforced after 3 grueling days of emergency repairs. Half the ship still ran on patched software, and the engine core groaned under pressure like a wounded animal. But it could fly, and that was enough. Once we cross the perimeter, we're blind, said Rix, tapping the nav panel. No scans, no communications, no long-range jump capability. You go in, and it's just us versus whatever's waiting. Holt glanced at Elias Rhine, his former friend, now turned living warning sign. What's waiting? Elias stared at the void on the screen. Ghosts of us. He pointed to the swirling black mass. This nebula masks quantum signature cloning. They've been copying command styles, neural patterns, even instinctual combat response data. They studied every rebel, every defector, every commander the Council has ever faced, and they built copies. Not clones, not AI, synthetic composites, powered by harvested nervous systems. Vega narrowed her eyes. You mean they're people? No, Elias replied. They're weapons that look like people, no conscience, no soul, just your worst enemy in your own skin. Holt gave a faint grunt. Great, I've always wanted to shoot myself in the face. He turned to the crew. This is not a battle, it's an infiltration. We get in, locate the core facility, sabotage their deployment systems, and shut down production. We don't fight unless we're cornered. We move fast, cut deep, and get out. Rix raised a hand. And what if we do get cornered? Then we fight like hell. The Havoc Warden entered the Black Echo like a ghost slipping through a wall. Within seconds, light vanished. Stars disappeared. The ship's external viewports turned black. They weren't looking at empty space. This was a nebular mass designed to consume light itself. Like a predator made of gravity. And the crew felt it. Not just in their eyes, but in their bones. The Warden's hull creaked. Lights dimmed. Even conversation on the bridge became muted, like voices were being swallowed. Holt gritted his teeth and focused on the outdated analog controls. Ironically, Earth's most ancient systems gave them an edge. The Council relied on quantum navigation, which didn't work here. They flew by instinct. After 6 tense minutes, a flicker of movement appeared on screen. A structure. Vast, spiked, half-submerged in the swirling dark, like a dagger embedded in a wound. The facility was built directly into the heart of the nebula. No clear hangar, no signal. Just a gaping black vent leading deep into the structure. That's it, Elias said. The forge. Approach at Vector 7, Holt commanded. Everyone to infiltration stations. We're going in quiet. The boarding team consisted of Holt, Vega, Elias, and 5 hand-picked specialists, engineers, saboteurs, and 1 ex-con with an arm-mounted mini-nuke. They entered through the forge's waste duct, a tunnel of molten black metal, still warm from recent energy burns. It smelled of ozone and chemical rot. "Feels like walking into a coffin," one of the engineers muttered. "No," Holt said. "This is a womb, for monsters." Inside, the walls pulsed with embedded neural strands. Not wires, not circuits, organic tech, alive and twitching. The Council had fused science with suffering. They moved quietly, stepping over tubing that resembled stretched skin, past walls that listened. And then they found it. The echo chamber. Rows upon rows of stasis pods, each glowing with dull light. Inside each one, a replica. Holt walked down a row and stopped at a pod. Inside was him, but younger. Smoother skin, no cybernetic jaw, eyes dead. "Jesus," whispered Vega. "They didn't just copy you, they perfected you." "No," Holt said. "They hollowed me." Elias pointed toward a terminal. "We can corrupt their neural matrix. I coded a virus before we left. All we need is 5 minutes at the core server." Holt nodded. "Move fast." Vega and 2 others secured the corridor. Elias got to work at the console, fingers moving with surgical precision. But then, the lights changed. Not alarms. Acknowledgement. Something had seen them. A mechanical hiss echoed down the hallway. Then footsteps. Holt turned just in time to see a figure walking calmly from the far corridor. It was him. Not a clone. Not an AI. A mirror of Commander Darius Holt, dressed in council black combat mesh, eyes glowing faintly. "Target acquired," the Echo Holt said in a perfect voice match. "Elimination protocol engaged." Before anyone could move, the Echo struck. It moved faster than any human had a right to, an engineered blur of strength and reflexes. One of the saboteurs screamed as his throat was crushed before his weapon cleared its holster. "Fall back!" Vega shouted, opening fire. The corridor lit with plasma. The Echo Holt twisted, dodged, and slammed Vega into the wall, knocking her out cold. Holt charged. He didn't fire. He didn't speak. He just tackled the thing. And for the first time in years, he felt fear. Because this enemy didn't flinch, didn't curse, didn't bleed. It fought like a memory. Holt drove his elbow into the Echo's face, cracking synthetic bone. The Echo responded by shoving a blade into Holt's side. Holt gasped, but stayed standing. "I'm not some perfect copy," he growled. "I'm the real thing." And he grabbed the Echo's jaw and ripped it free. The synthetic creature spasmed, then collapsed in silence. Elias finished uploading the virus and yanked the interface cable out. "It's done," he said. "In 10 seconds, this place goes dark." They grabbed Vega and ran. Behind them, the stasis pods sparked. One by one, their lights flickered out. Data scrambled. Backup systems collapsed. By the time they reached the hangar, the forge was howling, groaning under the weight of corrupted code, neural shutdowns, and overloaded systems. They launched in a stolen dropcraft just as the entire facility started collapsing in on itself. No explosion. Just implosion, a black star eating its own heart. Back on the Havoc Warden, Vega groaned as medics patched her shoulder. "You all right?" Holt asked. She nodded weakly. "Been hit harder by hangovers." Elias stared at the collapsing forge through the main viewport. "They'll build another," he said quietly. "They always do." "Then we'll burn that one too," Holt replied. He turned to the crew. "We just killed their newest nightmare, and now the Council knows we've seen what they're really doing." Rix looked up from the console. "Sir, we're getting an open signal." "From who?" Rix hesitated. "Everyone." He tapped the control panel, and a flood of messages came through. Ship captains, rogue commanders, fringe colonies, dozens of factions were broadcasting one word: ready. Holt didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just leaned forward, eyes on the stars, and said, "Then we take the fight to the center. Prepare for the final offensive." The war came like a storm. It started with a silence across council channels, a lull, deliberate and unnatural. No broadcasts, no patrols, no threats. Then, a single signal lit up across the galaxy. A location, a date, a countdown. The core worlds, the Council's seat of power, untouched for centuries, protected by fleets, planetary cannons, energy barriers laced with quantum-triggered annihilation codes. No one had ever attacked it. No one had dared. Until now. Commander Darius Holt stood at the heart of a new fleet, one forged not of polished perfection, but of grit, anger, and resurrection. Earth's battered crafts were joined by Varnak warbeasts, Drevi Spectre ships, pirate frigates flying no flags, and rebel units that had crawled out of the shadows at last. Above them all floated the Havoc Warden, no longer limping, no longer ashamed. Its hull was reinforced with salvaged Council alloy. Its weaponry fused Council tech with raw Terran engineering. Every scar had been repurposed into armor. Holt looked out across the formation. Hundreds of ships, each crewed by people who'd bled under Council boots. This was not an army. It was vengeance with engines. "Status?" he asked, arms crossed. Rix, now acting as fleet coordinator, spoke without looking up. "Jump drives are green. Echo signal interference holding at 0. All sectors report go. And Commander?" "Yeah?" He smirked. "We're scaring the hell out of them." "Good." Behind Holt stood Sergeant Vega, still recovering from the Echo facility, now fitted with an upgraded neural brace on her shoulder. Beside her, Elias Rhine, once a ghost of Council programming, now fully reawakened, calm and sharp. Holt didn't give a speech. He just said one word: jump. The fleet surged through space in ripples of blue light. The final jump. The last stand. No fallback plan, no diplomatic exit. They emerged in the heart of the Council system. And what they saw wasn't defense. It was desperation. The Council hadn't called reinforcements. They'd summoned everything, entire fleets, orbital mines, automated defense satellites pulsing with red light. Even half-finished arbiters floated in dry dock, activated early in a panic. And at the center, like a wound in the galaxy, floated Virelion, the Council core world, golden domes, ivory towers, and a city so pristine it never believed war would touch it. It was about to. "All ships," Holt commanded over the fleet-wide channel. "Split into tridents, hammer lines hard. Don't let them regroup. We breach orbit within the hour." Kyle's Varkon fleet took the lead on the right flank. The Drevi Phantom cruisers vanished, cloaking instantly as they dove under planetary defenses. Holt's own core unit pushed dead center, slicing through the automated grid with the stubborn fury of humanity. The battle began not with an explosion, but with a scream. The scream of thousands of suppressed voices finally released. The sky burned with plasma. The Havoc Warden charged straight through the opening wedge. Its newly fitted spear cannon fired kinetic blasts that shattered 3 Zale carriers in quick succession. Holt barked orders, switching manually between gunnery stations. Rix called out, "We've got heat from the North Arc. 4 interceptors closing fast." "Let 'em," Holt growled. The interceptors approached, but found their targeting scrambled, jammed by Elias, who uploaded Earth's chaos virus through a line-of-sight burst. One interceptor turned on the others. The rest spun out of control. "Warden to all ships, form on me. Target the central orbital ring. We breach Virelion now." The rebel fleet converged. Hundreds of ships focused fire on a single orbital point, a weak seam in the Council's upper defense station. The structure began to crack. Then it exploded inward from the inside. A council corvette had turned. It opened a signal. "We've had enough." The station failed. The planetary shield shimmered and dropped. Now the surface was vulnerable. Holt led the drop team personally. He, Vega, Elias, and 2 squads of ground troopers boarded an assault pod and slammed into Virelion's central citadel like a warhead. The city was alien in its beauty. Clean skies, marble streets, trees genetically engineered to bloom forever. A utopia built on bones. And those bones were rising. Civilians, once silent, once too afraid, began flooding the streets, tearing down statues, screaming with years of rage. The illusion had shattered. Now came the reckoning. They stormed the citadel steps. Council guards in gold armor stood their ground. Holt didn't slow. The first line fell to pulse rifles, the second to Elias, who moved like a whisper, slicing through combat protocols before they even executed. Inside the council chamber, the last of the ruling caste sat in circles, 8 beings of various species, dressed in ceremonial garb, eyes filled with disbelief. "You can't be here," one croaked. "We are," Holt said. "You don't understand. We do. You're destabilizing the galaxy." Holt walked forward and placed his rifle on the marble table. "Number. We're resetting it." He nodded to Elias. The assassin uploaded the virus into the chamber's control terminal, broadcasting their surrender, their lies, and their failure to every world still under council flag. One of the counselors tried to activate a dead man switch. Elias shot her without hesitation. "Guess I'm still useful," he muttered. Outside, the fleet stood silent as Virelion's golden crest was replaced with a new one, black cloth marked with a white star. The flag of Earth, the flag of defiance, the flag of truth. Hours later, after the guns had gone quiet and the fires had cooled, Holt stood on a balcony overlooking the city he'd just helped bring to its knees. Rix approached, dirty and bloodied, but alive. "Fleet reports minimal losses. Varkon ships are mopping up stragglers. Council forces are retreating across 6 sectors. We won." Vega stood beside Holt. "It doesn't feel like victory yet." "That's because it isn't," Holt said. "Then what is it?" Rix asked. Holt looked toward the horizon, where smoke rose from shattered towers, and children played in the streets without fear. "It's the beginning." Behind him, the people of Virelion gathered, not cheering, but watching. And then, slowly, they knelt, not in submission, but in understanding. They had been ruled by fear. Now they would rise by example. That night, Holt gave a speech, not from a palace, but from the citadel steps, standing on rubble, blood still on his boots. "This isn't Earth's empire," he said. "This is your freedom." He looked into the cameras. "We didn't fight to become rulers. We fought to make sure no one ever could rule unchecked again, and now we offer a choice. To every world, every species, every voice long silenced. Join us or don't. But know this, we are watching now. Weeks passed. The council officially dissolved. Some former members vanished. Others stood trial in open courts, not for revenge, but justice. The sovereign chain became something more, a loose collective, monitored and balanced by an independent body formed by humans, Varkon elders, Drevi tacticians, and neutral species alike. Earth refused any seat of permanent power. They'd had enough of thrones. Holt returned to orbit only once, to see the final arbiter vessel dismantled and scrapped by hand, piece by piece. No one saluted him. No one called him emperor. Just commander, the one who lit the match. Elias disappeared into the stars one day without warning. Left a note. "Some ghosts belong out there, but if you ever need a shadow again, you know where I'll be." And the Havoc Warden? She stayed flying, scarred. Glorious, and always headed toward the next injustice. Because the day humans unveiled their outdated ships and dominated the stars was never about proving power. It was about proving the most dangerous truth the galaxy had ever forgotten. You don't need permission to fight back. And Earth? Earth would never ask again. The end.